This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth. We're here outside of a women's correctional services, a women's prison, where they have been allowing male prisoners to enter there just by identifying as being women. We're talking about men who have sex offenses being allowed to stay in this prison with women. So there's a number of people here, rightly so, protesting this. So we're going to talk to them today and get their thoughts on how this came about, till we can be to the point now where they're allowing sex offenders and men to share a prison cell with women.
We're here today to demand the removal of males from female prisons. And to let the public know what's going on, because they don't think that it's going on. They don't believe it. So we need to let them know that we're not going to put up with this. Get the men out.
So by granting trans-identified men access to women's prisons on the basis of self-ID, women's health, women's lives, and women's safety are put at risk. A disproportionate number of these men who are applying for access based on their gender identity are violent offenders, they are sex offenders, they are pedophiles described as prolific. Placing men in women's prisons violates women's rights to freedom of expression, as those who object are penalized. As the leader said, they could lose parole if they talk about this. It's insane.
I want to thank everybody out here today with the signs and the support, because if we didn't have any sort of people out here to support us, we'd be silenced like the women inside today. Yeah. And I refuse to be silenced like I once was by corrections. We are scared to speak up in there. We don't know our rights in there. And then we get out and we wonder what in the hell just happened. We need to get these violent men, these rapists, these pedophiles, we need these pigs out of women's prison. Here, here, sisters.
Why don't you start us off by just telling us your name and what brings you here today?
My name is Heather Mason, and I'm a founding member of the Canadian Women's Sex-Based Rights, so CAUSBAR, and we're here protesting the immediate removal of all males from women's prisons.
So if people have never heard that this is going on, can you take us back to maybe how did we get to this point? Where did this all begin?
So originally we started transferring males who had had surgery into women's prisons. That's been ongoing since 1982. There was very, very few actual transfers. And then in 2017, they changed the transfer policy. It's based on gender identity now. So all they have to do is identify as a woman, they can apply for a transfer. So they don't need a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, no surgery, no hormones, no birth certificate change, no name change. They don't even have to present as a woman.
It all happened, I guess, when the self-identification bill was announced in Canada through Justin Trudeau. Shortly after that, corrections followed policy, and they've now created a loophole where men can identify, even if they aren't even men prior to being incarcerated, as women, and can gain access into our women's prison. It happened, I think, kind of a lot under the radar. I don't think this was thought of when they thought of the self-identification bill. And it was, you know, the sick men that want to use loopholes to get into women's prison that figured it out. And now we have numerous complaints to the women inside of harassments, assaults from these men.
I think that the fact that there are males in women's prisons being sexually assaulted, having all their bodily privacy rights undermined, it's extremely serious. I think it demands protest. It demands for the public to know what's going on. So few people are really aware of what's going on in prisons, and not just, I mean, this is the case for all of women's spaces in terms of change rooms and bathrooms and shower facilities because of Bill C-16, but it's you know, people need to know what's going on, and we need to get rid of those who've been making these rules and advocating for them, like Trudeau's Liberals.
The biggest part of this is that Bill C-16 was kind of passed really quickly, and the testimonies recommending caution and restraint were completely ignored, and it was people who were professionals and who knew what they were talking about. And now we've been proved right, unfortunately. So the Liberal government's kind of keenness in to get diversity like legislated, and diversity is great, but you can't stomp on women to make other people happy.
Is there any sort of vetting process do you know of? I mean, if they're literally sending in men who are known for sexually abusing people already, sex crimes and stuff, that seems like they're not doing very good vetting, right?
Yeah, I think that's why we're here. They are not. There's no sort of, policy. It's pick and choose. Right now, there's 5 men in the prison behind us, 4 women. One of those men sexually assaulted a 3-month-old baby. So how can that be protecting our women? And as I said today, if I were to self-identify as a man, I would not be put in the women's prison because of my safety of being raped, of being, abused. But so why can't we get that for our women in our women's prison?
They're supposed to be starting a review board on this, but the issue here is that the males who identify as women, if they're denied a transfer, then they just do, they go through the complaint system with Correctional Service of Canada, so the grievance process, and then they escalate it to the tribunal, the Human Rights Commission. So then the Human Rights Commission can make an order that determines that they are transferred, and that opens the door, and then there is no process. So we'll have the exact same thing as the United States, where they're all being transferred in.
There's like an application process, and they allegedly do look at your crime and then analyze it. But essentially, if you say you're a woman after you've committed the crime, it could be any crime ever, it'll be recorded as a female crime. And you'll get tossed into a women's prison pretty much immediately, and into women's remand or whatever, until they've decided that it's not appropriate, essentially.
So if a man is in a prison, he doesn't like it anymore, he wants to move into a place that's all female, what does he have to do in order to make that actually happen in reality? Is it literally just as simple as saying, I'm a woman now, let me go?
Yeah, I mean, it almost is. There is a vetting process to some degree, but there is no requirement for, for these people to be pre-op. In many cases, you've got males with fully functioning genitalia in these spaces, still with those sexual attractions, and with still those male desires, the testosterone driving male sexual desires and patterns. And so, it really is almost to that degree.
To be honest, as weird as it sounds, it's almost as easy as saying that I identify as a woman. There's some paperwork they have to fill out, but with, the fear from corrections, being labeled as, it's a hate crime or a bigotry or, they're approved. I don't even think there's many that are denied, even with the violent crimes that are happening, to be honest. And they're being transferred from prison to prison because their behaviors in the women's prisons are inappropriate. It was less than a month ago we had a call of a male inmate in a prison back east that was spitting in women's faces and being aggressive. Even the staff aren't wanting this. We fought for years for the women's institutions to be less secure. We asked for, lower fences. We don't have stab-proof vests in there. And they're bringing things like this back because now there are violent men in our prisons.
So what do you think are some of the steps that we need to do in order to set things right? I mean, there's so many things, that it's not just an easy flip of the switch. So what are some of the things you would like to see happen in the coming, weeks, months, in order to get, set this right?
Yeah, to be honest, I think a huge thing that we need is this right here is a platform for us to speak on. When we first started speaking out on this, it was all right away, you're transphobic, this is a hate crime, shut up, pretty much. So now that it's kind of the word's getting out, and I think that more sane people are actually realizing what's happening in here, we are getting a little bit of a platform to speak on. And, I'd love to see more of this, more people giving us a chance.
I would like elected officials to acknowledge that a woman is an adult human female. That would be a good start. Unfortunately, elected officials are designed to want to be elected, and that is what they're going to do. They're going to glad hand anybody that they can to get the most support that they possibly can to get into whatever position that they're trying to get into. We need elected officials who actually stand for women on all issues, not just on this issue, to actually start supporting us and coming out in support of us. Because right now, the NDP's discrimination policy actually doesn't include sex as a protected characteristic. So I understand that it's meant to be covered under gender, but it's not. We exist on the basis of our sex. I don't have a gender. I'm a woman. So that's basically, we just need our officials to start listening to us.
Not all trans women want to transfer to a women's prison, so nothing has been done in the men's institutions to make it safer for them. So what we do need to do is make like LGBTQ wings in the men's institutions, tailor the environment for their unique needs, and that way they can deal with all of them there and stop downloading the risk of male violence onto the women.
Right. Now, I get a lot of hate online for covering these types of subjects, and a lot of people are going to scream, this is just transphobic. What would you say to the people out there who are claiming that this is just people being transphobic?
So what is transphobic? Is it transphobic to say that a man with a penis is transferring into a woman's prison and raping a woman? That's transphobic? Then you need to reevaluate your thinking.
We are here today speaking in favor of women's safety, in favor and in support of women's charter rights. We're not speaking against trans people. And if anything, we're arguing that these people are capitalizing on the laws that exist to protect trans people in order to gain access to a victim pool. This is bad for everybody. So if you really wanted to extrapolate it, you could say that this is also bad for the transgender movement, because you've got rapists raping women in women's prisons because they got in based on self-ID. Self-ID is not good for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, just from a scientific perspective, I mean, we know that there are sex differences not only to males and females, but also to things like sexual behavior, sexual attraction patterns. The literature is just so robust on these differentiations between male and female, and the fact that this is being borne out right now in harms towards women. I mean, these things should have been clear back, 5 years ago before these rules were brought in. Now that we're seeing the effects, we're seeing women being sexually assaulted in prisons and in these spaces, it just goes to show what's going on, and that there's, it's a matter of truth. It's not a matter of sentiment or these other more vague, subjective things.
I'd love to sit down with some, government officials that are very, for this right, and just let them hear us out. Let's have a platform where we can talk like adults and not be called transphobic and, not argue about it. I want to see this, I think that's what's going to start it, is getting the word out there. And I think once there's awareness, then changes can be made. There's not going to be any changes until people are actually aware of what's actually happening in here.
Yeah, well said. And I think when they do become aware, you may surprisingly find there are more people on your side, on our side of this issue than we realize. So awareness is key at this point. If they want to learn more from you guys and maybe get involved, is there any kind of go-to places, a website or whatever, Twitter, hashtags? Where should people go to follow this important cause?
For myself, I'm part of the Strength and Sisterhood, so we do have a website. You can Google us, Strength and Sisterhood. We have a Facebook page and Twitter and all of that, so that'd be awesome to get the support, because we really are an organization trying to help the women inside. We are made up of women from inside and professionals, lawyers that are here to help women, and it would be nice to have some support.
Women'sDeclaration.com has the Women's Human Rights Campaign Declaration on Women's Sex-Based Rights. It's available and you can sign it. We've got hundreds of signatories from hundreds of countries, thousands of signatories from hundreds of countries. CauseBar has a website, that's causebar.ca. And Strength and Sisterhood, you can support them as well. Basically just start talking about the stuff and start reading it. It is online and there aren't just 30 of us, as you can tell by the number of people who attended this one protest in this small town today.
I have a section on the Keep Prisons Single Sex website in the UK for Canada. So you can use the hashtag Keep Prisons Single Sex, you'll find me. You can also sign up for newsletters for We the Females, Women's Human Rights Campaign, and also the Canadian Women's Sex-Based Rights, and stay up to date with all of this type of stuff.
Perfect. Well, keep up the great work, because this is such an important issue that I don't think a lot of people even realize is a problem in the first place. So maybe awareness is still key at this point. So keep it up. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. What a crazy time we're in. I warned about this back when Bill C-16 was passed. I warned this is an incredibly slippery slope. And since then, the LGBTQ community has added just about every letter to the alphabet. We've seen our feminist prime minister do things like change the lyrics of the Canadian national anthem from "In All of Our Sons" command into "In All of Us" command in order to be more gender inclusive. He filled his cabinet with 50% women simply because it's the current year. Well, folks, the slippery slope has had grease added to it. It is so slick right now that we've gotten to the point where a man can enter a female prison simply for claiming to be a woman. and that is wrong. Guys, we need this information to get out there. We need people to know this is a problem in the first place. If you agree, males should not have the ability to occupy a female prison, please click that thumbs up button, share this video, get the information out there so that we can make this right. Guys, I want to encourage you to check the links in the description as well to find out how you can get involved with some of these people who are leading the charge. And again, we need this information out there, guys, so please share. Click that thumbs up button, share this video, and stay tuned. We're going to have more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.